This is Yad. All praises and all glory to the Most High. I'm talking about the Andrew Ward Kovalev fight. Andrew Ward is a very, very, very good fighter, and Kovalev is also, in his own way, a very good fighter. A bit of controversy surrounding Kovalev in terms of his actual fighting ability. I don't really know how to class that, to be honest. You could see me as I'm not a boxing aficionado, but I am a fight. How do I put this now? I'm not a fan of anything in this world, but I like to watch combat sports and then know one or two things about combat sports. So I've noticed that a lot of guys have views about the Andrew Ward Kovalev fight, and a lot of people say that Kovalev won the fight, which is not totally like insane thing to say, but at the same time it's something that you have to really ask. Like, but you have a lot of people who call themselves boxing aficionados and call themselves boxing pundits and stuff. You have to ask yourself, what exactly is the criteria to become one? Is it that you have had to be a boxer, or you've been around boxers, or you have very strong opinions about things when it comes to combat sports? What exactly is the criteria for you to be a boxing aficionado? Because I'm not one, but I think the majority of people who say that are either being disingenuous, or they're trying to play to the gallery. What I basically mean is that if you truly are a boxing expert, then you should also understand how boxing works. You should understand what happened in that fight. Andrew Ward got knocked down in the second round in that fight. Up to that point in time, it could be argued that Sergey was more or less winning the fight, because Andre was fighting super cautious in the first two rounds until when he got knocked down. In the third round as well, I believe it was still like, some remnant of those two rounds where he was really super cautious, and it wasn't really, he was doing his trademark stuff, like he was going to the body and he was like feeling out his opponent, whereas Sergey was like, he just seemed to have this edge in the first few rounds. Faded towards the middle to the end of the fight. But first few rounds, it could be argued that Sergey won them because Andrew was being super cautious, and then he ended up getting caught with the counter right, I believe it was, with Kovalev. So my point basically is that Andre had to come back from that. Looking at that particular point in the fight, you'd think to yourself, like, man, that Kovalev has the fight in his hands, man. If he continues fighting like this. But for that knockdown forward, like, Andre was a different guy, was a different fighter in that fight. He started to really, like, counter Kovalev in terms of, like, started to really, like, get into the fights, because sometimes what I've noticed with some fighters is like, it's until you knock them down before they actually wake up in a fight. So that's not necessarily Andre's MO, but he has been knocked down, I think, in the amateurs and stuff, and I'm not entirely sure he's been knocked down. I think he has been knocked down too in his actual fighting career, but obviously not something that happens to him frequently. But what really got me in terms of my admiration, not like fan admiration, that's like, okay, he did this, he came back after being knocked down, and that's something that's very, very, very difficult to do. And not just came back, he came back against a guy like Kovalev. And Kovalev is like the guy who's like finishing everyone with the exception of a few people. He's like the guy who's, beating everyone down. And yeah, so Kovalev, I'm not really like I said, I'm not a fan of anybody, so I'm not really on any hype trains. So I wouldn't call Kovalev a hype train, but I think that a lot of times these fights, some of these fighters are made to look or made out to be better than they actually are. Honestly, in my own honest opinion, Kovalev may have the power for whatever reason. I don't know how or why he has that power. Couldn't tell you, but I don't think he's on Andrew Ward's level. And the irony is that a lot of people say, "Oh, Andrew Ward is not the same fighter he was 5 years or 10 years ago." That's true because he's gotten older, so he's not going to fight the same way he fought as a younger guy, is he? He's going to fight with more experience. He's going to fight with more caution. He's going to fight with more reserve regarding his opponents. He's going to have even more respect for his opponents when he's fighting, so he can totally exploit what they're doing. Up to this point in time, you haven't seen anyone control Kovalev the way Andre did in that fight. He completely took away his right hand in that fight, and that's something that people tend to overlook. It's the fact that Andre did something that nobody else done. Okay, fair enough. The fight went the distance. You can make the argument that Kovalev won the fight. I'm not even going to get into all that. When I talk about boxing aficionados, one of the first things they would notice in that fight is what Andre was doing. You find that Kovalev towards the end of the fight, he was getting more and more cautious because I think in his mind, it's just like what happened with Pacquiao and Floyd. I wouldn't say that it was as one-sided, but as the fight wore on, you could tell that Pacquiao was getting more and more cautious because he could sense, and that's something that only a fighter would understand. He could sense that his opponent was going to do something if he did what he was doing. So he would not be as comfortable attacking as he was in the first few rounds because his opponents he knows that the level of his opponent is what it is, and that he's not going to keep throwing the same combination or throwing the same thing that he threw before, because he knows that if he throws it, he's going to get either countered, he's going to get knocked down, or he's going to get knocked out. I think that's what happened with Sergey. I think Sergey at some point started to realize that Ward had figured him out, and he knew that if he came with the same combination again, Ward was going to catch him. So I have to give him props in that regard, that he was able to understand that. Same thing with Pacquiao. A lot of people say a lot of stuff about Pacquiao, that he's this, he's that. Some people say good things, some people say bad things. I don't have anything good or bad to say about him, except for what's happened in that Floyd fight. But a lot of people don't really understand what it's like to be in a fight. When you're fighting somebody and you just have this feeling that this person is going to catch you if you do this. That's what Sergey felt like in the ring when he fought Andre. When he was getting into like the 7th or 8th round, he started to realize that if he was going to do this thing, this guy's going to counter me. So he wasn't throwing as much as he wanted to throw. He wanted to throw, but he couldn't, because Andre took away that ability for him to throw. And you'd think that the people that follow boxing would know this, But at the same time, Andre Ward, in my own opinion, he's not like the strongest guy. He's not like the most physically gifted guy out there. And yet, he finds a way to win against guys, who you would think would get the edge on him. He finds a way to win against guys who you'd think would beat him in the fight. Crusher, you look at in that fight, he has decent boxing skills because he was able to box. Majority of his opponents, even Hopkins. When they fought Hopkins, he was boxing Hopkins, but the reason why, because Hopkins was under the threat of a knockout, so Hopkins was tentative in that fight, so he took advantage of it and was able to box Hopkins. But it's kind of like a twofold thing. It's not that he has such an extra ability to box, but he basically took advantage of the fact that Hopkins was tentative to box him. So in this fight with Andre, you would think, okay, he's going to have an edge with the boxing, but I knew he wouldn't, because I don't think he had an edge against Hopkins. I just think Hopkins was just really, really cautious of that right hand from Sergey. That's what it was, and that's what made him more or less a target for Sergey throughout the fight. So in Andre Ward's case, Andre was not willing to just sit on his back, just stay on his back foot, and let Sergey dictate the fight. That's what Hopkins did. Hopkins allowed Sergey to dictate the fight, which is why he lost the fight. But you can't really blame the man because one, the man is he's not like he's a spring chicken, you know. He's been fighting for a very long time. Obviously, at some point in time, you have to protect yourself, and that's what he did. He protected himself in the ring. That's why he's still fighting till today. He's a smart guy. But this is the guy now, and Sergey is fighting a young lion. You can't compare him to Hopkins because Andre will take more chances. Andre will put himself out there. Because if you look at guys like him, there's this perfect balance between defense and offense. You're not going to just sit on your back foot the whole night. You're going to take the initiative sometimes. That's what he did in the second round that cost him. But if you look at it, it was based off something that he did that he should have been a bit more cautious of. But you never know sometimes how someone's going to react to something. Because probably he's gotten away with doing that maybe in sparring, but he's now fighting somebody who is very, very switched on in that regard, and it tends to counter people that do stuff like he did in the second round. So he adjusted, you know, and he was able to turn the fight against Sergey, make Sergey think twice about throwing what he's used to throwing. So he basically did to Sergey what he did to Ward in the second round throughout the whole fight. So obviously he didn't knock down Sergey like Sergey did him, but you know, there's been several fights which I'm not even going to bother naming because it's not necessarily the same scenario. But there's several fights where you have a guy getting knocked down, you know, during the fight and end up winning the fight. You know, like Timothy Bradley against Provodnikov, you know, and other fights of that ilk. The fighter gets knocked down and ends up winning the fight, but it's not the same scenario. And Reward, I don't think, lost as many brain cells as Tim Bradley did in his own fight, to be honest, you know. So, that's just my own take on it for now. I might decide to come up with something else again. This is Yad. To God be the praise, to God be the glory.